Good morning, everyone. Okay, so I'm going to talk a bit about diet, and I promise that you will have a lot more pictures after my first few slides of very wordy information. Okay, I'll start with what the American Heart Association says. They recommend that you eat an overall healthy dietary pattern. And this dietary pattern, it should emphasize more on eating a wide variety of fruits and vegetables, include whole grains and products made up mostly whole grain foods. If your protein should come from healthy sources of protein, and we are now, there's a movement towards plant-based protein. Sorry, there's a little bit of typo, which includes legumes and nuts, fish and seafood, low-fat or fat-free dairy products. And if you still want to eat some meat, we recommend go for lean meats or poultry. And make sure that as much as possible is least processed. Right. The oils that we use, we recommend liquid non-tropical vegetable oils. For example, canola oil, corn oil, olive oil, soybean, and sunflower oil. Look for minimally processed foods. Limit the sugars in your drinks or desserts. Foods, if you can, prepare with as little or no salt as possible. And limit alcohol if you do drink. But if you don't drink, don't start. Okay. Another popular diet that we tend to talk about is Mediterranean diet for heart health. It's actually a generic term. Based on the traditional eating habits in countries bordering the Mediterranean Sea. Okay, and Mediterranean style diet typically includes, again, lots of fruits, vegetables, plant-based items such as potatoes, grains, beans, nuts, and seeds. They have olive oil plays a big part in their cooking and food preparation. And it also includes dairy products, eggs, fish, seafood. And it centers on minimally processed and plant-based foods. Wine, if you drink, you do make sure that you take in small amounts or in moderation. And for the Mediterranean diet, they tend to have it with meals. Again, if you don't drink, don't start. All right, it's not necessary for our region at least. And fruit is used as a common dessert instead. So between the Mediterranean diet as well as the dietary pattern recommended by the American Heart Association, there's actually a lot of overlap recommendations, such as the emphasis on plant-based foods, vegetables, fruits, whole grain products, beans and legumes, and the inclusion of low-fat and fat-free dairy products, fish, poultry, vegetable oils and nuts, and to limit the additional sugars. Don't use too much sodium in the food. Cut down on highly processed foods and refined carbohydrates, saturated fats, and fatty or processed meats. And these two diet patterns play an important role in preventing heart disease and stroke. Of course, also reducing risk factors that leads to heart disease and stroke, such as diabetes or high cholesterol levels and high blood pressure. A diet that has a lot of positive outcomes in terms of managing high blood pressure is the dietary approaches to stop hypertension diet, or DASH diet for short. Again, it is a recurring theme. The emphasis on fruits and vegetables and low-fat dairy, cutting down on saturated fat, total fats, limiting red meats, fatty meats, sweets, and added sugars. And it's been shown to be quite effective in lowering blood pressure. And if you combine DASH diet with a lower sodium diet, your blood pressure can reduce even more. Now, how does that relate to our local situation? If you go to Health Hub, you will probably see this My Healthy Plate. And we have been talking about My Healthy Plate for a good few years already. All right, and you probably do see advertisement in print, in newspapers, in television, and so on, about quarter half. All right, so if essentially also again recommend similar elements that can be useful to take care of your heart. So I'm just going to go straight on some strategies you can perhaps consider in eating healthily for your heart. So first of all, choose whole grains as much as possible. So there's actually many versions of whole grain products that's out in the market now, and it's getting more and more prevalent and easy to find, okay, in most of the major supermarkets, even in those mini marts in your neighborhood, okay. So you can start to switch to whole grain products such as brown rice. There's even wholemeal pasta, wholemeal bee-hoon, wholemeal breads, and so on. Okay, so a lot of people that I talk to is a little bit adverse. I don't like to eat brown rice. Now, even if I eat brown rice, my husband don't want to eat. And it's really common because especially if you have not tasted it before, okay, it does taste a little bit different. So what you can actually do is try to ease in. If you don't want to go in straight and be gung ho and say, I'm going to eat brown rice from now on. Everybody's going to follow me and I'm going to prepare everything for my family. Okay, that works as well. All right, so what you can actually do is try to ease it in. All right, you could order and try it once in a while if you're eating out. If at home, you can try to mix. So you can mix it like 20% brown rice, 80% white rice, and see what happens. And then as the acceptance grows, then you can increase the amount of brown rice in your preparation as well. Okay, so that's one way. But yeah, as much as possible, try to choose whole grain products whenever possible. So of course, fruits and vegetables. If you can eat a rainbow, all right. So whenever I ask my patients what kind of fruits you eat, it's very typical: apple, orange, papaya, watermelon, and that's about it. That's it. Okay. There's actually a whole lot more fruits and vegetables as well. And it's actually quite interesting. When I ask my patients what kind of fruits they eat, they can name me a list. But when I ask my patients what vegetables they eat, they'll go, taugeh, and something green, and that's about it. Okay. Again, there are so many types of fruits and vegetables. And vegetables, it could be leafy vegetables, non-leafy vegetables like lady's finger, brinjal, cauliflower, broccoli, things like that. So do try, and we advocate a rainbow because you want colors. And the more colors you have, the more different types of nutrients that you will get. All right, so do try to add as much as you can at every opportunity. You can add into your cooking, and if you go to the economy rice store, you can choose. Typically it's 1 meat, 2 vegetables, or 1 meat, 1 vegetable. Sometimes it's 2 meats, 1 vegetable. So as much as you can, try to have more of the vegetable option whenever you can. You can even ask for more vegetables at certain noodle stalls, all right? Do be careful. Sometimes they do charge extra, so you need to know what you're paying for, all right? So, but do try, all right? I think there's more and more acceptance of people asking for more of this, less of that anyways. Okay, so that's good, all right? Then, of course, if you want a dessert, fresh fruits will be a better option, and then cakes and tarts and things like that. Proteins are very important. All right, especially as we're getting older, we do realize that we do not eat enough protein for our muscle building. So, but we do try to recommend, again, more plant-based protein. These are healthier and has been shown to have a more positive impact on the heart health and chronic disease management in general. All right, so go for beans, go for legumes, even nuts and seeds. So I find that nuts and seeds are very useful as a snack. All right, now I would say that like my dad is starting to get old, and he says that as long as my teeth is useful and I can still use my teeth, I'll try to eat as much nuts as possible. So there are sometimes some constraints or limitations for some people to eat nuts, but as much as you can, do try, all right, to include nuts in your diet. All right, so do go for fish and seafood products. If you go for meat, go for the lean meat. Poultry, take out the skin and the fat under the skin especially. And if you take dairy products, go for the low-fat or fat-free versions. Now, if you do cook, do try to choose healthier oils, all right? Typically, they are more plant-based oils, except for perhaps palm oil, all right, because it does have a slightly higher content of saturated fat, all right? But you can actually have quite a lot of other options easily available in the market. For example, sunflower oil, soybean oil, olive oil, corn oil, and gingerly oil. Gingerly oil is a type of sesame oil actually, all right? May not be so easily available, but there are people who use it as well. Okay, so or you can use sesame oil if that's easier for you. All right, so just going back to oils. Even though you're using the better version of oils, doesn't mean that you can just use as much as you like. You still need to control the amount. Limiting sugars and sweetened beverages is not only to fight diabetes, all right? Because if you take too much of sugars, it is also additional calories, and that could lead to some unnecessary weight gain, all right, if you're trying to manage your weight. All right, so there's again quite a lot of things that's happening in the market right now. The campaign on the Nutri-Grade labeling for sugars has already been in effect for a few years. All right, so those will be a good guide. All right, so try to avoid Nutri-Grades that is labeled C's and D's. All right, and if you can on a daily basis, also try to change the way that you are having your beverages, for example. Choose those that has less sugar or no sugar added, all right? And if you are drinking things like tea and coffee, try to aim for no sugar if possible. Again, there are some people who can easily just switch to no sugar at all. Some prefer siu dai, all right? I've heard others of siu dai. I don't know how more siu dai can it be. Like, I think the coffee shop auntie also don't know how to make the coffee already. All right, so, but the thing is that it's very common now, so don't be afraid to ask for that change, all right? Now, the challenge I had when I tried to switch, I used to just drink kopi o and there's like with the whole works of sugar, right? When I wanted to switch to kosong, it took me a while. Okay, not so much of I don't like the taste of no sugar in the coffee. I know I can get used to it. It's more like my habit of ordering, right? Instead of just ordering kopi o, and then walk off, it's kopi o mas siu dai or kosong, right? And then because I keep going to the same coffee shop, the uncle knows me already. See me in the queue, start to make my cup already. Now the uncle, today different, right? I have to keep. It's not only a habit that I have to work on. It's the habit of my regular coffee shop uncle that I have got to change the habit. All right. Of course, if you're a regular lah, okay. If you're not regular, it doesn't matter, right? You just order whatever you want. So it's really the act of trying to remember that if you're really trying to make that habit, all right, to really think, okay, I'm going to order siu dai, make sure I order siu dai. When in the queue, tell yourself, I'm going to order siu dai, I'm going to order kosong. And when you actually is in the front of the queue, you really put the order and not your usual order with the sugars. Similarly, reduced sodium is again a matter of habit. You probably have seen this before, and it's important for people with heart failure. Okay, especially if you're feeling breathless and you realize, I know you're having like water retention, and your doctor has been telling you got to cut down on your salt because you need to control your water intake and so on. All right, there's many ways that we can do. All right, such as cutting down on the sauces. All right, typically those are the dips. All right, then or you can ask for plain. So instead of things like nasi lemak, biryani, chicken rice, they have a lot more flavors, right? But they also comes with other things like what gives the flavor, right? It's the salt, it's the oils. So if you can switch to more plain ones, plain rice, brown rice preferably, then you can actually cut down on the sodium intake. All right. Now, soups and gravies is something that we really have to be careful. Okay. So sometimes it's a real challenge. Now, if you eat katong laksa, okay, what do they give you? Just a spoon. All right. And you expect to scoop everything, you know. So things like these are really challenging, all right, to people, especially if you're a foodie. So we really need to be a bit more careful how to plan your meals. Do you really need to order this? All right. Or maybe get a smaller bowl, maybe don't eat so often. So, but the key is to try to identify where the sodium is, all right, where our challenge is, all right. where we are not willing to compromise sometimes, all right? So you have to think of different ways of cutting down, whether in terms of the amount that you're taking or the frequency you're taking. But we know that soups and gravies, especially you're eating out, all right, tends to have a high sodium content, all right? So you need to be a little bit careful. Okay, now processed foods is really, we already know that it's very high in sodium content. So as much as possible, try to avoid that. Even things like fish cake, fish balls, sausages, luncheon meat, these, if as much as you can, try to avoid and try to go for the fresh version. All right, there's things like sliced fish, there's like chicken, things like that, for example. All right, there's also sometimes some of the catering or the restaurants or some even hawker centers are starting to adopt healthier dining practices, including cutting down on sodium. Okay, and this is coming soon, akan datang, right? The government, MOH, has already said that they're going to work on the food operators, right, to look at how do we cut down on sodium in their food preparation. So expect to see in the coming near future, all right, there will be something similar to the Nutri-Grade for sugars. There will be something similar for the sodium as well. So that's good for consumers as us, all right, but ultimately it's still, we are the consumers. Sometimes we do dictate what's happening in the market. So as much as we can, try to look for this, ask for lower sodium products, then there's a higher chance of adoption. Then there are more options available for us when we eat out. Right. The QR code, if you can scan it. It actually is quite interesting because you can, it will lead you to that site in Health Hub that you key in some food items, and then it will generate the amount of sodium that you have in that dish itself. So you can, again, play around with it so that you can have an idea what would be a slightly better choice for you if you're looking for a low sodium option. Okay, so cutting out sodium is one thing, but my next question, my patient always asks me, no salt, how to eat, no taste, all right? Not that true, all right, because taste comes from many other food items as well. So as much as we can, use natural flavors from herbs, from spices, and the last column, mushroom, tomato, kelp, and seaweed. I like to call it nature's MSG because they do contain a protein called glutamate, which gives you that umami taste that MSG tends to give you, all right? So play around with fresh ingredients, all right, and hold the sodium, the salts, the sauces as much as you can. So adding on to heart failure management, so if you or some of you may experience things like shortness of breath, and you've been told that you need to manage your fluid intake because you're having fluid retention, right? So typically, we say don't drink so much water. The doctor will usually recommend a certain amount of fluids you can drink in a day, all right? But it's actually not just water that we are drinking. Actually, fluids comes from many other sources, right? So I have patients say, I actually don't like water, so I don't drink water. Then what do you drink? I drink Milo, I drink soup, I drink this and that. Okay, that's water as well, because you need water to make all these things, right? So this is just for you to be a lot more mindful where your fluids come from, all right? And if you really need to manage or cut down on the amount of fluids you need in a day, sometimes it can be quite restrictive. You really need to know and sometimes have to count where all these fluids are coming from. I do believe that in the afternoon there's a session talking about fluid management, so I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's just to highlight to you that we are actually getting fluids from a lot of places. You just need to know where. So coming back to a heart-healthy diet, okay, so the healthy plate does support a heart-healthy diet, okay, so we're looking at having more whole grain products. So from the brown rice and wholemeal bread section, which is the first quarter, choose whole grains and limit refined carbohydrates. The other quarter is the meat and others. Choose plant-based as much as possible. Legumes, beans, nuts, seeds. You can choose in moderation fish, seafood, poultry. Try to limit fatty meats and cut down on processed items as well. All right, aim for more fruits and vegetables. Remember, eat a rainbow, as many colors as possible. All right, that gives you the variety. It's also a lot more interesting. And if you really do want desserts, then fresh fruits may be a better option. All right, and if you cook especially, try to look for healthier oils. Again, in as little as possible or in moderation. Okay, and of course, not forgetting the added sugars and sweetened beverages that you need to try to avoid or cut down, as well as limiting the sodium intake. All right, so how does it actually play out in terms of the healthy plate concept? Your plate could look something like this. Okay, just to give you an idea how easy it can be to incorporate this into your daily diet. Eat fresh, all right? Fresh foods and limiting processed items can really help you with quite on cutting down on the sodium at least, all right? And fresh food is still where most of the nutrients, we advocate most nutrients are. Okay, all right, so that's it. Thank you very much.